This conference will now be recorded.
Okie dokie, go ahead.
All right, this is call the Hyde Park Selectboard meeting of Monday, January 18th. Here we are, dedicated working on holiday to order.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have to practice with that mute button too. So if you're not speaking, please use your mute button. Okay. Back to you, Susan.
Okay, let's see. We'll Ron, do we have other people on?
Allison's here.
Allison's here, right?
And I don't. Teresa Snow is supposed to be calling in, but I think she's logging in now.
Okay. All right. We'll get her in a few minutes.
Yep.
Are there any changes to the agenda?
No.
Okay. All right. Allison, welcome. What can we do for you?
Hello. I'm so glad to be here. Hi, everyone. It's good to see you again. I am looking forward to tonight sharing with you our new community planning toolkit for substance prevention in particular. And I'm wondering if you all got a copy of it, or if you've seen it at all. There's a hard copy I tried to get to you. Yes, this is what it looks like. Maybe I can see a hand if anybody has one or has seen it or seen a copy. No. Oh, bummer.
I have it. Okay.
No.
Oh wait, you do have it or you don't have it? No, I got no's. Okay, so there are copies of this that are waiting for you, I believe, at the town offices. And so then let me back up a little bit since you haven't seen it. Is there possibility for me to share my screen or?
Sure.
Maybe,
If you can figure out how to do it.
yeah.
Okay.
You might be able to do it yourself.
Can you while Ron tries to figure that out. And hi, Teresa. Nice to see you in another setting.
This conference will now be recorded.
Sorry.
Okay. And now we're recording. Perfect. So anyway, I'm Allison Link from Healthy Lamoille Valley. We've seen each other before because of all the amazing work that you all have been doing over the years, especially around health and wellness in the community with adopting the healthy community policy. And so one second, Ron's trying to GoToMeeting needs to use accessibility features. Okay, I'll try to see if that'll work. If not, okay.
Okay.
And so with you all doing the work that you've been doing, adopting a healthy community policy, which is you're one of two communities in Lamoille Valley who've done that in the past few years, along with amazing assistance from Ron, and really being really kind of taking the lead in the Lamoille Valley on what you've been doing. You're 3-4-50 partners as towns. If you remember the 3 behaviors that lead to 4 chronic diseases that lead to more than 50% of deaths in Vermont. And being a partner 3-4-50 means that you signed on to a letter of commitment that the town will consider the 3 behaviors and really work to decrease tobacco use and increase physical activity and to increase healthy nutrition. And all of that just really goes along with what I'm here to share with you guys tonight, which is a document that we created, and it is a community planning toolkit for preventing youth substance misuse and building protective factors. Now, what is this toolkit about? I'm doing a bit of an introduction tonight and really just like the overview and brainstorm a little bit about how we might use it. But just in the overview, we all think about like, okay, well, what are we most concerned about, for our town? And for some, it might be economic vibrancy. For some, it might be resilience of the town or the health and wellness of the town, substance prevention in the town. Teresa might have her own of food security. And, there are so many things that, that people might think about, but really the policy work that we do relates to the economic viability and vibrancy and the health and wellness. Like the health and wellness piece really goes together. So this is a document that is building on a previous document that we created about how the policies can support substance prevention. This one is specifically for youth substance prevention and what policies we can put in. But before we even do that, the document really kind of, you can use as a workbook in a way. It's like it's been adapted from the initial document that we created, so that's really user friendly. Now, just explain a little bit. Healthy Lamoille Valley and the
Ron, do you have any idea why we're getting all that feedback?
Let me just check. Yeah,
some people
yeah,
might
it's probably me, so I'm going to mute.
So folks with me, I'll just explain a little bit of like, we have this document, the primer for planning for prevention, which we did in conjunction with the Lamoille County Planning Commission years ago. And what a resource that is. I'm sure Ron has, Ron's seen it, you all have seen it at some point, but it really read almost like a dissertation. When I would go work with select boards or planning commissions, I'd go and I'd say, okay, let's go to page 11 and look at some language you might consider in your town plan around health and wellness, or let's go look at some specific policies around that relate to substance prevention. And a lot of it was just we weren't getting at the core of what it was about. So this document is great because it kind of will take folks through. So for example, just give you a couple of examples. We start out just sharing a bit of this piece, which is the Vermont prevention model, and just about how there are many ways of impacting substance prevention. And people do it on all different levels, from the individual level or between relationships and like what parents and families can do. But what Healthy Lamoille Valley does and what municipal planning can do is really on that like outer level of systems and policies. So that, this is the beginning of the document. Then we share a little bit of data, local data, and about risk factors and protective factors, like what is happening in the community that is leading towards increased negative outcomes, but then also protective factors, like what do we build into our communities that help protect our youth from substance misuse. And so we have a piece related to that. We have some health equity. And then we kind of talk about protective strategies, especially around having a community vision for health and wellness, and really taking time to think about what is Hyde Park's community vision around. And a lot of that language, like you've already started to do in your healthy community policy. And, and you will also notice that when you see this document, you will see a nice picture of Ron. Here he is. Can you see him holding some of the new signage that you all put in for the substance-free parks and trails and being 3450 partner. So, this really is a document that is highlighting what communities are doing, like what you're already doing, but also looking towards more resources and what are other possibilities. How can you think more strategically, go back to that healthy community policy and even build on it, and what more can be done. And so the toolkit is, we've just launched this past fall. It's an adaptation. It's already really spreading and people are finding it very accessible. So I look forward to you getting your hands on it. There's a link to it from our website. And that's, I don't know, can I share my screen, or we're not sure about that at this point? I'm
not sure about that. I gave you presenter rights.
So if you go to healthylamoillevalley.com, and maybe Ron can put this in the notes, and I'm not sure actually how to, can I chat it to everybody? Will that work?
Ron can put it in the notes, and then we'll have it. Yes.
Okay, great. So I'll also, just in case you wanted to like click on it now. I'll just put it, if folks know where the chat box is. So I just put it in. So you can get access to it right from the link that I just put in the chat. And that will put a link to where you can even, can print this or view it online. But also there are lots of other online resources. Like, for example, all different health, your healthy community policy is there as a resource for others. Other communities' work is also listed there, from vision statements to town plans to policies that folks have adopted. So what I wanted to do is just hear from you all, like, around substance use or misuse, what might be some of your concerns currently, and what do you think would be a way to potentially use this toolkit and have, Hyde Park continue to move your process around being a healthy community, further develop. And I'm happy to have, everyone chime in about it.
Hi, Allison, it's Brian Shackett. And could you just give us an example of some of the actual things that you've done with other communities, helping with creating the policy?
Sure. You mean on the policy level?
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. So Elmore, for example, has also created a healthy community policy. There are many towns that we have worked with on their parks and trails, like you, to have substance-free parks. There are, the town of Morristown had a wellness chapter as part of their town plan, and we just helped update it to be more inclusive, to include substance misuse prevention and really a broader, wider, a breadth of definition of wellness and health. So that includes mental health and substance prevention and other factors. So it's involved in language in the town plan. Included in Morristown's town plan update, which the Planning Commission approved. It still has to go through some other stages, but the Planning Commission also approved that they're going to have now a health and wellness committee that will be a subcommittee of the Recreation Committee to actually bring people together to start to really think about, bring a coalition together in the town to think about that vision statement, to work towards action items. And then second to that, they're going to have a substance prevention and I forget what it's called, but like a subcommittee that's focused on substance prevention and also recovery. And that committee will specifically look related to substance prevention. Currently, we're doing some, consultation and providing resources around Act 164, looking at all of the details and all of what we still don't know, and, supporting towns in getting those resources to make, strategic, thoughtful decisions and how to support towns in that. But other ideas of policy that, you can find in the document, some towns will look at, okay, well, can we look at our outlet density, or like looking into the future of outlets that sell substances? Can we look at our advertising? Like, do we want neon lights, for example? That's an issue going on right now. Like, can we put in net neutral advertising ordinances to be able to, go beyond what exists and think about, what we want our town to look like with respect to advertising and or how it's being advertised. Can we look at buffer zones of, what kind of distance from our parks and from our schools do we want to have certain, businesses? Do we want to put in place checklists or, extra, do we want to have more authority to kind of, like, when we're looking at reviewing a liquor license, what do we want to be thinking about and how can we think about that? These are all types of resources that we support with policy pieces on that broader level. Does that help answer the question?
Yes, thank you.
Sure.
Allison, I think in many ways this is fortuitous because we have in the past couple of months, there are a couple of sets of parents that have been very frustrated because the elementary school doesn't really have much in the way of, activities, and so they've gotten together, and there's, well, anyway, what's happening is, I think, truly a recreation committee is now truly being formed in Hyde Park.
Wow.
And we have some wonderful ball fields that the current recreation has really been used for adult softball. I mean, and it's one of those great resources in town that most people don't even know it exists. So these couple of sets of parents are really into baseball and soccer and doing all that sort of thing. So I think as they're getting themselves together, being able to make this link for them with you, and yes, they're starting to have that, is sort of perfect timing.
That's a great idea. And I'll just add to it, we have worked with some towns, and I think you also have as one of your policies that there's actually a substance limitation. I think there's no alcohol usage in Hyde Park facilities while there's a youth activity going on. Ron, is that correct? I think I read it.
Yeah, it's for the prohibition for the youth, and then somewhat case by case for adult activities.
Right. So like some of these, and getting extra signage and extra support. And there are two other projects that I'm working on that relate to this. There's this great initiative we have to work with youth sports coaches across all of the Lamoille Valley and help to support them in ways of not necessarily like the, the skill development of like, teaching the sports skills, but how one adult, a child, a youth, having a caring adult in their life that's consistent is such a protective factor for them against so many negative outcomes. And so how a coach can be that person. And we did a big survey and focus groups, and we have a work group now of a bunch of coaches from the Lamoille Valley working on supporting youth coaches across, which is great. And actually, Jill LaRock from Hyde Park, she won one of the raffle prizes for doing the raffle. And so Hyde Park Elementary, for their basketball, actually received one of these $100 gift certificates to Power Play from Healthy Lamoille Valley for that. So that was great. And what was the other piece? There are a lot of pieces of our work that, are across different domains, but from the youth work and being in the schools through the policy work. And just, this document specifically is to kind of be something that anyone in the community can pick up, but it's really how can the municipality really be, be those pioneers as you have been, and how can you continue what you've been doing? So it's a toolkit for that support for you, with whatever's coming up.
Hey, Allison, this is Matt Reed. I'm just wondering, like, Boca just added free Wi-Fi internet service in the village.
Sorry, I can't hear very well, but I'm trying to, if you speak up a little bit.
Better?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so Boca just added free internet kind of through their VTEL or whatever system in the village area.
Yeah.
And my concern is once they did that, I was wondering if the meetups to either sell or buy drugs or to use drugs was going to increase. And I've also spoken with the people in Elmore recently at the church, tried to get them to get a grant to put a cell tower in their church. And I'd just be curious if, they have the safe spaces in Elmore and all that, and it's working great now, but what happens when people can actually have cell phone service, meet up and sell and do drugs together in an area that normally they just wouldn't do it because they're currently all meeting in Morrisville right now or Hyde Park.
Mm-hmm. That's very interesting. I talked to Seth Jensen about this. I don't know. I mean, I know that you've had contact with him over the past, and we talked about back when the pandemic started about how, internet is impacting folks in many ways, as we all know, and the lack of internet access. But we also talked about, even with the how it related was people are using more spaces, and how when those spaces are more accessible, that we want people to use our public spaces, right, for many ways. And so how can we build in protective factors or policy along with enforcement, right, along with, whatever newness comes, and think about this. So I'm glad you're raising this lens, because it hasn't been one to be honest, I haven't thought of much, but Seth and I did have a conversation about this, and I'm happy to help, pursue that and think about it. I think that the toolkit, could be helpful, but I think looking at, as you see a risk factor or something as a concern, how do you build the protective factors around that, including these evidence-based, policy, municipal policy level with, enforcement to be thoughtful about whatever policy comes in. I don't have a great answer, but I'll be happy to, look up some of the research and ask some other coalitions if they've encountered that. I don't know the data, to be honest, on that.
Well, certainly in any kind of planning of a park or an open space or anything where people can get to, that comes into play drastically on how, we can observe that area. I mean, it's changed the Oxbow and Morrisville and how it's taken care of. The skate park in Johnson they almost had to get rid of it because of it. The talc mine building in Johnson, because it's literally like playing whack-a-mole with these people. And if you don't enforce it either, on the other end of that,
Enforcement.
We know what happened in Hannaford's and Tractor Supply with people ODing right in the store.
Yeah.
And so again, if there's no enforcement and there's no monitoring, they're going to move around. Fortunately or unfortunately, we have a lot more houses. When I was a kid, you could drive on a back road and pull over and find a place to drink for 30 people. Nowadays, there's 60 houses on the end of that back road. So, they're having to move into these public areas. And again, it's not just drinking, it's meetups to exchange is the big thing. I mean, like you just saw in Morrisville, they pulled that three people over the farm,
Yeah, well, you're right. We know that access and availability, is a risk factor. We know that social norms and community norms around substance that's a risk factor. And all of that really leads to youth using at earlier ages, which leads to them being, 4 to 5 times more likely to become dependent later in life, and cause, and all the other associated negative outcomes on on an individual, family, and community level. So we know that. And so, I think that, obviously, as you're considering, any new option for, not just Wi-Fi, but other pieces that, having that substance prevention lens or, looking at risk and protective factors of what's going on, is definitely valuable. But I'll look into that. I'm very curious what other towns have come up with and what they've seen.
And Allison, Matt that you're talking to is one of these parents that's gotten real active and is getting the whole recreation thing going. So you guys have met talking this way, but would be good to get together because
that's great. And
that was Matt Reed, Susan, I think. Matt Reed. That was Matt Reed.
That was another Matt? Okay.
Oh, I see Matt.
Sorry.
Another
one of the other things they used to do.
Go ahead.
I don't know how successful it was in the 80s, but they used to bring in people. I mean, we had a guy that was a former gang member come into the school and say all the horrible stuff that he went through and experienced and how it, degraded his life and all the outcomes of it. I mean, back then it was always some white guy that came into the school and said whatever, he's from New York City, but we could probably bring somebody in that's maybe I understand they don't want to come from the community into a school. They want to come from a different community so they're not recognized as easy, but come in and say how it destroyed their life. And, here we are talking about a lot of race stuff these days. Don't just bring in a white guy that it's ruins life. Don't just bring in a black guy. Bring in, whoever.
Health equity is important. Racial justice is important.
Bring in a mother.
Okay. All right, you guys,
I agree. Matt, I'm happy to have conversations with you, Matt, offline. I'll put my email in the chat when I'm done here. But I'm just curious. I know I don't want to take up much more time, but if anyone from the select board can think about uses in the planning commission and or the rec commission as you have, or even on your level of taking next steps as you think about Act 164, all different ways of considering the risk and protective factors and how we can support just you with resources. Please let us know.
Allison, thank you for putting that, sending that letter, or that attorney Dumont. sending that about 164, Act 164. I think that's a really good letter. And I think it's something that the town of Hyde Park really would appreciate and do appreciate.
Oh, great. Yeah, I'm glad that you got that. Jessica and I are doing, we're all in the prevention world doing a lot of work just to be able to be, help towns make educated decisions. And so, I think the situation right now is that, even the Vermont Growers Association, like, we just don't know a lot about what's going to happen with the Cannabis Control Board and what decisions they're going to make. And it's best to have all that information, before actually making decisions. And towns also, depends on how you read the law, but some say that, like, once opting in, then that's it, right? Like, then there's no going back and you can't make any changes. But if you could put together like a cannabis control committee beforehand, then you actually are able to kind of think about, well, what are some other, municipal additional restrictions or policies or ordinances? What might we be considering, like buffer to the school or other things that maybe we don't know what's going to come up, or in advertising. So I think there's just a lot of unknown right now, but we'll keep sending the resources as we create them and as we're on the teams across the state to get it together. And we love being a coalition. So, it's not about saying, don't do this, it's about saying, okay, like, how do we help support like a prevention minded way of doing something if it's going to happen.
Thank you. And for all that you're doing.
Thank you. Yep.
Yeah. Great. So
Very
nice
important work.
And and Ron has also in the office the signs that Susan and Ron wound up picking, these nice signs that you might see around at some events when, I guess, when the snow's gone.
That's right.
Enjoy the winter and let me know how I can.
Okay, thanks, Allison.
Thank you.
Ron, what you have next? Teresa?
I can't identify one person. I don't know if that's Teresa as a caller. No. I guess not.
No, I'm in with video.
You're in with video.
Yeah, do you see me? A wave. Hello?
No, not yet.
No, we don't see you yet.
Interesting. That might be with my connection. I don't have internet yet at my home, my new home, so I'm using my phone hotspot. So I see myself.
I see you, Teresa.
Oh, you have to, Susan, what did you say before? Turn off the.
Let's see.
Yeah, if you, well, I don't know if you see it on your phone. If there's a little picture of you up in the right in the corner, and then it says share your webcam. Oh, that's Mary Waltz. Okay.
Mary sees me, and so does Allison.
Okay. Well, we've got all kinds of interesting.
Don't know.
I think when I turned off my camera, it said TSSF. Do you see that in a circle?
I see that.
Couldn't see me at all.
Nope. Sorry.
Oh, well, that's okay. We can hear you, Teresa.
That's great. And I'm curious if I can try to share my screen. And you can't see me. You probably can't see my screen anyway.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
I just left my video off so she can come in, I think. So
There you have
Okay.
it.
here you go, Teresa.
All right.
All right. So thank you for inviting me this evening. My name is Teresa Snow. I'm the founder and the executive director at Salvation Farms. And we are requesting first-time support from the town of Hyde Park. Our allocation of town funding request is $750. And we have also asked that the signature waivers asked you to consider waiving the petition signatures related to this allocation request. A little bit about Salvation Farms work specific to serving the Lamoille Valley in Lamoille County is our Lamoille Valley Gleaning Program. And for those of you that aren't familiar with what gleaning is, it It's the act of reaping after the harvest. It's an ancient agrarian, biblically referenced activity, but in modern times, previously was done by the poor, but in modern times it tends to be done by an organizing entity like Salvation Farms that builds relationships with farmers. We organize volunteers. We go to farms. We collect what they haven't picked or collect what they have picked but they haven't sold. And then we oversee the logistics of delivering that food to community-based food programs. A little bit about 2020. We serve 16 sites on a regular basis between Cambridge, Johnson, I think one location in Hyde Park, and then a good many in Morrisville. Specifically for those agencies that might serve Hyde Park residents include Lamoille Union High School. Well, they had a campus food shelf, which we used to provide fresh produce to. We started providing food for their home delivered meals. We also provide food to Laraway Youth and Family Services, which I suspect serve youth within your community. We also provide food to the Lamoille Community Food Share and Meals on Wheels. So those organizations tend to have more reach into other towns. Again, the food that we're moving is produced right here in the Valley. It's grown by our local farmers. And there's a lot of reasons why this food exists. I won't necessarily get into that unless you ask. But what we were able to distribute in 2020 was around 70,000 pounds of Lamoille Valley grown surplus produce to these agencies. We also served residents of the Lamoille Valley through a distribution program we call the Bounty Share. It's in partnership with the Community Health Services of Lamoille Valley, where they identified patient families, and we would provide weekly boxes of produce free of charge for those patient families. We estimate that we serve upwards of 4,000 households in the Lamoille Valley this last year. Our program costs around $70,000 a year, and we provide this service to farms and agencies at no cost. In addition to our regular collection, working with farms and volunteers and the distribution of those pounds that we collect from local farms, this year we moved almost 30,000. I think I have a number in what I want to screen share with you, but around 30,000 pounds of USDA farmers to families food boxes, and just over 1,400 gallons of surplus Vermont milk right into our community. And we're excited to share that the United Way of Lamoille County has been hard at work trying to get a building renovated in downtown Morrisville to house this program so that we can increase our service both to area farms and the region's food insecure. Total number of volunteers we engaged this last year was around just over, I think, 140 who contributed more than 500 hours collecting food from farmers and distributing it around the community with us. So let me see. I can share this. Oh, I need to ask the organizer to make me a presenter if possible.
Hey, Teresa,
Yes,
Dave Gardner speaking. I've got a couple questions.
sure.
Number one, what other towns in Lamoille County is supporting this at their town meetings?
That's a great question. So,
And number two, aren't we taking away from local farmers and local producers that are selling their goods at the farmers market if they can wait and get it for nothing?
that's a great, both of those are great questions. So first, we've approached 10 towns. We decided to be really ambitious this year. We have not received any funding from any towns previous to this approach. We've approached Greensboro, Craftsbury, Hardwick, Woodbury, Woodbury, Morrisville, Stowe, Hyde Park, Johnson, and Cambridge. It looks like we have a good chance in at least half of those towns, pending whether some will waive the need for signatures. I presented it and Stowe, both seem very positive. Craftsbury has waived need for signatures. Woodbury was able to collect signatures for us, as well as Greensboro. So we're down to the wire with a few other towns. Regarding the farms and the market impact. So I started this organization, and I was employed at a farm. It was really important to me that Salvation Farms figured out how we could respond to available surplus, that we did so in a way that didn't negatively impact farms' markets, broadly speaking. That's why we chose to focus on the charitable food system. We measure every year the impact that our program has on volunteers, to find out if any of those volunteers were introduced to new farms, if any of those volunteers are buying now from farms that they'd gleaned on, and whether they change any other behaviors related to food, like food waste. Are they composting, that kind of stuff. And we've seen, more than 50% of responding volunteers indicate that they're changing dietary behaviors and purchasing behaviors as a result of working with us. We've also identified that through distributing this food, both the agencies, their workers and volunteers, in addition to their clients, are becoming much more comfortable with crops that are both familiar and unfamiliar, willing to take them home and try them. 15 years ago, that was not the case. We had a lot of sites that were unwilling to take fresh produce because of the concern that people wouldn't be able to use the product, or willing to, or wanting to. So a large part for us is educating people about local food, giving them opportunities to engage with local seasonally acclimated food products, because once you break down the comfort barrier, they're more likely to take the financial risk to make the purchase to support local farms. One survey, one recipient said, it's really nice to know that farmers care enough about us to make this food available to us. So,
I think you missed my question. My question was, how is this going to impact our residents that grow food to sell at the food markets, knowing that they can get it for nothing on your giveaway program, and when they're trying to sell this stuff and make a living?
So my point being, I completely understood, because this is a question we get all of the time, is that, how do I say this? Well, being really,
well, a lot of the places the food's going, Dave, is not where farmers sell. And it's going to people who would not be buying this food. So I know that Salvation Farms has always been very careful about, one of their key things is to not be in competition with farmers. The end goal being that if ultimately, because mostly what farmers are going to be able to sell to restaurants and in markets are the A+ vegetables. So they produce lots of B and C vegetables that aren't pretty, and people won't pay a premium price for. That's sort of where Salvation Farms is looking at coming in and long term, being able to help the farmer find and develop a market for those fruits and vegetables long term. Because that's why a lot of it just stays in the field, because the farmers can't sell it, because people want the broccoli to look perfect. And if it doesn't look perfect, they aren't willing to pay for it. How is that, Teresa?
Dave, I've also had the opportunity to work with Teresa over the years with the work crew, and she pretty much works with nonprofits
Oh, I see.
on a tight budget, is what I think is important for you to know. And the food goes to those nonprofits, is what it is.
I see.
Yeah.
Teresa, what's your operating budget?
Well, for our entire organization, for 2021 is $550,000. So we're just over a $500,000 budget for our entire organization. But that includes national work that we do, statewide work that we do. But for this particular program, it's just over 100,000.
Okay, 100,000. And how many
Yeah.
employees? I know you have volunteers, and you mentioned that. How many employees are you up to now?
We have 5 full-time employees, and we have 1 AmeriCorps Vista member.
Great.
Let's see if I can move this down a little bit. So
I'm also, I was
Dave?
going to say, one of the things that I've always liked about these programs, particularly the gleaning, is it gives folks, and Brian, you know, having had your folks work with them, it gives folks that are receiving benefits the opportunity to go out and, if you will, pay it back, pay it forward, to be able to not just be on the receiving end. And that has, again, I would bet, Brian, you've seen it, some of your folks have gone out and done some gleaning and that sort of stuff. Working with food that way and being able to help other people has an impressive positive impact on some folks.
One thing that I have always impressed, and Teresa taught me about it, was that back in biblical times, as she mentioned, it was practice to leave the first 3, I think, rows of whatever you produce for the poor. And that's how the poor survived years ago, was to go to a farm, and that first 3 rows of produce was for them to pick and have.
I'm wondering, David, if this on the screen helps.
Yeah, can you see the who we see? Yeah, he's got it.
And yeah, so I'm sorry that wasn't clear. And it is we only provide direct to individuals when they're referred by their healthcare provider. And that number's small, a couple dozen in a year. And they typically are referred to us because they have a chronic disease as well, or a chronic health issue coupled with household food insecurity. So we tend to serve agencies that serve individuals who don't have the financial means necessarily to meet their needs, their food needs. We had a great young man from, I think it was at Laraway Youth and Family Services youth, came out and picked winter squash a couple years ago with us and was like, oh, I don't eat vegetables, blah, 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 blah. And then at the end of the glean, he said, well, I can't wait to take this home so that we can put it on the barbecue, you know? So as Susan was saying, like this experience of people being involved starts to change their perspective of local food and farms. And we definitely don't want to compete with farmers. We want to build more educated eaters so that they'll support farmers.
I think that's, if you've got it, Teresa, and we aren't, the reason we're having you do this is we're doing everything by Australian ballot. So you'll be a separate line on the Australian ballot for folks to support. We're doing a couple of educational meetings before town meeting, but not as many communities this year. We're opting, we won't literally have the town meeting, but there will be, people can, as always, request an absentee ballot, or they can go to the town office and vote.
Is there a way that I can make information available to them, or is what we submitted already enough? Would something like this be helpful?
Yeah, so there's going to be a couple opportunities for you to, again, present some information at the 2 informational meetings on February 22nd and March 1st, which has been our working dates to get the word out on all the ballots. Front Porch Forum is good. This meeting is being recorded and it should be available on YouTube, so you can link this meeting after as well to get more information out.
Okay.
I think your big place you ought to put this out is on Front Porch Forum. You know, I think and it's just my opinion that the clientele that votes is also on Front Page Forum.
Mm.
And you know, you get it out, let people know about it, because I got a different opinion of it now than I did when I just read it.
I hope that's a positive opinion.
That is.
Okay, good.
Do we have any more questions for Teresa? Cool. You good?
Keep up the good work.
Thank you. And you all as well. And thank you for the time and your consideration.
Okay. Ron, what we got next here?
Okay, we have a quick update on highway. I don't know if Mark's still here. He was tired from the weekend plowing and he was like, I don't know how much longer I can last tonight. And I said, well, we'll check in with you when you come up with highway reports. I don't know if Mark's still here.
I'm still here.
Okay.
Okay, then we should deal with Mark, and we should probably deal with the hiring issue too, while we have Mark.
So far
Yeah, I
as
think
road
Brian can start with that if he wants to.
Okay, so we've done the interviews, and Roland was part of them. Dave was, I thought, going to be part of it, but it didn't happen. But anyways, out of the three leading ones, Mr. Wells, Atherton, and Travis.
Brian, hang on just a second. Ron, do we need to go into executive session to do this?
Not at this point. I think it's
Okay.
fine to announce their names quickly, and then Brian may have a recommendation. If he doesn't have a recommendation with Roland being the two board members, then maybe you do. But if it's not debatable, there should be a motion to have a hire letter. At some point, yes. I mean, if you want to talk benefits and a letter of hire and all those details, that probably would go into executive session.
Okay, but we need to know what Mark thinks too, right?
Yeah, so you can ask.
I assume he's part of the process. Okay.
Yeah, have Brian finish and then.
Okay.
But at some point, yeah.
Just want to make sure we weren't treading on delicate something or others here. Okay, sorry, Brian.
Performance stuff is the one you'd be careful of. Yes.
So we went through the interviews. We had really good applicants. I think it boils down to skills and what we're looking for. The application or the hiring was for a grader operator. And the one that I thought had the most skill out of everybody to run and operate a grader would be Mr. Wells. Roland was part of it. If Roland wants to if anybody's got any questions on the interview, like I said, they all interviewed well. Very candid, very open, honest. Any one of them would make a good employee, I believe. They all show dedication to their current employer, and so I believe that any one of them. But so that's why, for myself, it boiled down to what our needs are currently, and that's what I'm at.
Yeah, Brian. Roland, before you say anything, I think, Brian, can you say that everybody's in agreement with your recommendation, or should we go into executive session and talk about it?
I think we should go into executive session and we can talk about it because of the particulars like Susan mentioned.
Yeah, so can we do that at the end of the meeting to let everybody online kind of get on to other things?
Well, except we need to I want Mark to be present for it, so how long's
Yeah, sorry about that. Let me just check, see how many people we have.
Yeah, and what they need. We could do other quick workarounds and then go in.
Yeah, Mary Waltz and Matt Reed are here, and I think that's it.
And they're just keeping us honest.
Yeah, well, I think they're here for the town assessor.
Ah, okay.
And Mary Waltz, I'm not sure. She might be just interested resident. Oh, she just dropped off though. I asked Matt Reed.
Yeah, Matt,
Yeah, go ahead. I'm just
There you go.
wondering if you
Are-
guys-
are you here for the town assessor conversation?
I am, but I can wait. It doesn't matter.
I can, you're sort of in,
Doesn't matter.
okay. Mark, what you want to do? Have us go into executive session and take care of this, and then you can go get some sleep?
Sure.
Are you already sleeping?
Half.
Half, okay. Okay, then I guess I need a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
You
Second.
got a second? You there, Roger?
Second.
Okay, all right, we got Roger. Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstaining? Okay, we'll do hopefully a brief executive session here.
Go ahead, Susan.
Okay, we're now, the board is back in regular session out of executive session. And Rolly, do you have a motion for us?
We do. Preferred candidate to start the new hire at 2075. And we will put a 6 months trial on that.
And who's going to
Okay.
be the authorized signer for the letter of hire?
And that will be Brian Shackett.
Okay, we got the motion.
Second.
Okay. Any more questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstaining? Okay. Now, we sort of jumped around on that. Now do we need an update from Mark on the rest of the stuff?
Is he? Yeah, Mark is still here.
Well, you're saving salt this year, aren't you, Mark?
Well, put a big dent in it this last storm, along with the fuel.
On the
God,
salt.
we haven't-
It's been,
Oh, yeah.
we've had a lot of the little piddly storms, but everything should be going a lot better as far as budget wise than the last few years for sure.
Yeah, just hold your breath.
We usually pay.
That's right. You got anything that you want to go over with Mark? Any issues or?
I don't believe so. I think everything's going as smooth as it can. Being down a guy, I think the guys are doing a great job trying to keep up with things.
Oh, I got one thing, Mark, and it's very minor. I had to stop up to the town garage the other day to had to see Ryan, nothing to do with the highway. It was due to the fire department. Had to see Ryan, and all the doors were locked where I couldn't get in, which is not a problem this day and age with the COVID and stuff. You just don't want people walking in. But I do think that you should have the posters posted on the doors.
Yeah, we had them up and they all got wet. I got to reprint them and get them back out.
Okay, maybe we go down to the office, have Kristen or Kim give you one of those plastic inserts, you know what I mean?
But, yep.
Okay.
And I've got where to add Brock Carrier to the ready to assist list.
Yes, I talked to Brock, just trying to get an idea if we can have some. I did go wrong. And he offered to help because of our schedule wouldn't really affect his business because we were usually out earlier. So he was willing to give us a hand if we got going.
Hey, Mark, have you used Jimmy Parody at all this year?
Nope, I've tried calling Jimmy multiple times to try to get him to set up, ask him if the rate would work for him, and he has not answered me. So I don't know what's going on there.
Okay. And the only thing that I got with it's not with Brock, it's with anybody that's coming onto the town and plowing with their own vehicle, is how much insurance do they carry? You know, if they should back up into somebody and run over somebody or God forbid, kill somebody, $100,000 policy ain't gonna go very far. Then it's gonna come back on the town. Am I right with that, Ron?
Yeah, well, the insurance company will always say if you hire a contractor, make sure they have good insurance, because once that runs out, it goes to the VLCT group. So in this case, I think Mr. Carrier is supposed to provide Allison with insurance coverage, and we do have minimum coverage limits in our policy. So I'll make sure that those minimums are met.
Okay.
I guess my question is, Mark, have you approached anybody from Hyde Park? Where's Brock live now?
He lives in Johnson.
Approached anybody from Hyde Park before this all closed up in our face? There's other
Not really.
contractors.
Not really. I talked to Brock. I know he's already done all the paperwork. Did he take care of the ball fields and stuff? I know he's already in the system for the town.
Well, I think we ought to think about that and consider some of these contractors of Hyde Park and ask them before, because I know a couple that will be. But if we asked them and then they said no, then that would be another ball game. But I still think we should keep things to our contractors in our town.
Well, why don't you send Mark who they are and check with them, or you and Mark figure out if you want to check with them and see if they're willing to do it and what the deal is, so that they're apples to apples are being offered or received from people.
We can do that.
Just a question, how long, I mean, when do you think the person we hire, how long will it take him to come on? We won't meet him after that, will we?
Yeah, the reason we were looking, Brian,
Because
was,
of, yeah,
COVID and just, worst case scenario where we lost more than 1 or 2 people.
Yeah.
It wouldn't hurt to have two or three people on that list either. You know what I mean? Then you could go down the list. Just because somebody comes down with COVID or something happens, that don't mean somebody's going to drop everything and go their own business.
So if
What-
that's the case,
what would
we just put a posting in the paper.
there, or on front porch forum, just or
Yeah,
something.
and save Mark all the hassle and just get the people that are interested.
Yeah, that's an idea.
Yeah.
I like
Just them to send us an hourly rate.
What's that?
Just get them to send us an hourly rate, what they charge us by the hour.
Oh, I'd have them bid it.
Well,
Yeah, that's
I'm
what he
saying.
just said. Have
Get
them send an hourly rate, right?
Yeah, usually if we send out an advertisement like that, we'll have a request that they submit the types of equipment, the number of people they'll dedicate to us as a priority, and their hourly rates.
Yep.
And their insurance.
Now, aren't we also working with Morristown and Johnson for backup?
Well, we haven't had to use anybody, but we got good relations all the way around us.
That's what I'm saying. That would be our I would think that would be my first choice is to call Morristown and say, hey, listen, I got 2 guys out. Can you spare somebody?
But the only problem is, Ron will vouch for this, but if we're in the middle of an ice storm, a lot of times you can't spare somebody.
They're busy, Dave, believe me, if you've got an ice storm.
Yeah, so I think we've got the back, and again, this really is an emergency plan, and hopefully now, Brian, moving forward, we'll get our person hired. So then we'll be where we need to be, and hopefully everybody will stay healthy.
And
The thing is, if we post this, that gets us out of a whole bunch of stuff. But if he needs Brock in the meantime, could he still use Brock in the meantime until we get this post? Just explain it to him what we're trying to do.
You shouldn't have to with Jason coming on.
No, this is true. And it depends on-
No, you're missing the mission here. This is a triple backup plan. So you have your own crew. You have your own crew trying to manage it with less people. Then you have the neighboring towns that may or may not be able to help out, and then you have your backup crew of the contractor. So a lot would have to go wrong before we call Brock.
Yeah.
And I think the most important thing here is the proper adaptation of using the proper PPE while they're working. The proper precautions that they should be doing there so we don't lose a crew.
How are they doing with that up there, Mark, in the garage?
Yeah, they're doing good, and one they can remember.
Say it again.
I said, we talked the other day about it, making sure their masks are on, because in the beginning we were told that as long as they weren't within 6 feet, then I just got told the other day, as long as more than one person's in the garage.
Okay. But they hear it very good.
Yeah, I think that's a good point to clarify. We had early guidance that talked about the 6 foot if you're outside and trying to get separation on the inside. And I think the state got a little bit more concerned about the multiple people in the same room without masks. So I can't remember when it changed, Mark, but the clarification was that it's really hard to keep your distance in the same space. So
It's a matter of ventilation. It's a matter of ventilation and how the germ can spread within a confined area.
Yeah, very good. That's a good point. Thank you, Brian.
Okay, anything else with Mark, or can Mark go take a nap?
I got one question for Mark, and then he can resign himself to rest. We have a Lamoille County Planning Commission proposal to help the highway crew get trained on data collection and improving our ability to track expenses and report information to the state of Vermont. And we've talked to them primarily because they are the ones that assist us on transportation training items. And Mark's crew is somewhat capable, but to work with the state system in order to meet our MRGP requirements, we really wanted to get this done this year on both bridges and culverts. We have a poor inventory of existing bridges, and we have no maintenance plan for bridges. We have 1,400 culverts and a maintenance plan to upgrade them. But some of the data from the 2011 inventory is not helping us plan better on how to apply the annual money. So anyway, that's the mission on the $10,800 agreement that will be taken out of reserve funds to get both our bridges and culverts on a good inventory, get the highway crew trained on how to keep new data in digitally versus the current way, which is paper, and also to help capital planning for future projects. So it's a multi-purpose mission here with the regional planning staff.
One little note, Ron, when it comes time for that training on the bridges, I'd like to be part of that.
Yeah, I think the scope of work right now is to do I would call it a 70% inspection. Some of the things we can't let people do, which is get under a bridge, that needs the proper safety equipment, but a lot of other things can be done from the deck and from the approaches. So we may need at some point a referral to an engineering company or a bridge inspection company, but this project will get about 70% of a good inventory.
Hey, Brian,
Yes, sir.
you gotta write that backwards if you want it to look right on camera.
How's that one?
There you go.
See, what I'm seeing is backwards.
Yeah,
This one's backwards, that one, so I'll use this one now.
okay.
I'm way ahead of you. I'm way ahead.
Okay. So that's a motion request to enter into an agreement with regional planning for $10,800 to help the highway crew get their digital skills up to par with the new state permit.
So moved.
Got a second? Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay,
That's it for Mark.
okay. Night,
Thanks,
Mark.
Night, have a good night.
Yeah, you too.
Okay, the town assessor. Yeah, Ron.
Just a really quick thing on the annual mileage certificate which is also there. That's due February 10th with the state of Vermont, so I'll need to get that submitted by February 10th. There's no mileage changes, so it's a pretty simple report. In the past, they've had all 5 select board members sign it, but I think with COVID, they've changed that a little bit. So if I ask you to stop by the office to sign the mileage certificate, it'll be on the bulletin board waiting for you. Otherwise they'll take one signature. I'm not sure which, but that's all I
Okay.
had on that one.
Yeah, no, if you leave it out there, a couple of us can stop by and sign it. Okay. Town
on the-
assessor. Now we got Matt for this.
Yeah, town assessors, we had a dry run on this situation 2 years ago when Julie Roletter had her house for sale. And she was the workhorse on all things town lister. Back then, she was elected. And we tried to go through scenarios about what the town would do if we lost her. And we ended up coming up with a contract for services with Nemrick to do basically Julie's job. And that didn't turn out the way Julie wanted, but we were able to keep her for 2 years. And now we are looking at potentially another round of her showing the house more and potentially at the same point we were 2 years ago. We also are in a situation where we have one vacancy on the board of listers, and Gary Anderson is retiring from lister services. So we have two opens for town meeting day. If we go down to just Matt Reed, then the select board has to hire and put into contract a town assessor. Professionally trained, I think is the statutory language, to perform those services. And again, that's usually going to be Nemrick. There are some private consultant firms that do this, but they're few and far between. I think I got an email from Wolcott today that they're thinking about the same thing because of the situation with volunteers. You know, it used to be volunteers were able to handle all the state requirements for town listing. And that's gotten to the point where we actually pay people a part-time job to try to keep up with the state rules. This article, which is Article 6, I think right now in the draft warning, sort of forces the issue a little bit. So Julie hasn't left. We don't know if we're going to get a full board of listers at town meeting day. But there's nothing that's happened over the last 2 or 3 years that says it's going to get any better with finding listers that from the community that want to do all the statutory work. So this would be putting the article out there would tell the public that we have a situation where we need to change the way we do town assessing. And the board is making that change now with going to a town assessor. And the board of listers would be discontinued. The select board would sign a contract for an assessor, and Kristen, who's already budgeted for lister assistant, would be the contact person for that contractor. The contract we have with Nemrick drafted includes somebody at the town office being ready to help and do some filings and reporting that are required by state law. So Kristen would have to be trained and brought up to speed pretty quickly to fulfill that. And that's probably in that budgeted range of 3 to 5 hours that we already have. So there wouldn't be a need to change money on the town office side. There would be a need to find about $10,000 to hire the Nemrick consultant person. They're just a little more expensive than the employee part-time would be. So that's using a share of some existing town resources, which are about $11,000, and adding $10,000 for the assessor. Now, we don't have $10,000 in the current draft of the budget to do that. If we had to make a change, then we'd have to find that difference between the new contract that you're required to have and existing resources. So there would be an immediate gap. Or the other option is you amend the budget by $5,000 tonight, which would provide that resource. We don't really know exactly what the contract will cost because it's early, but it would cut down on the $10,000 short. If the voters say no, and Julie's able to stay, that $5,000 could go to a big project that's probably about $60,000, which is to convert the paper records for zoning into digital. We did the land records, and Kim's doing the bunch of it with a grant now for land records. But right now, the only reason for people to go into the town office is to get the zoning records. There's no zoning records online right now. So right now, Kristen or somebody would have to go into the zoning file, Or somebody would have to make an appointment with Kim to go look at the zoning files while the office is closed. But even after the office is open, usually the paralegal or attorney look at the land records, then they look at the zoning records. Now, the only thing that they wouldn't have access to right now, when Kim is done with their project, is the zoning record. So yes, it's a convenience thing for people, and we could get started with $5,000. But if you need it for the town lister, then that zoning project would just get delayed until there's money for that project. So it's kind of a dual purpose, $5,000 to help hire a contractor and start a big project.
It seems to me this is, Matt, if you're there, good time to hear Matt's thoughts about this.
And there we go. So yeah, I was thinking about this, and I understand that we're probably not going to get another lister. I mean, I understand the reality of that, especially during COVID. And if we go to an assessor, I mean, I thought about this, that Julie could contract out as an assessor. She can't be the town employee anymore than she has been, but she could contract out an intern until she sells her house. If she sells her house, obviously she's going to be busy moving and looking for a new place, so she would lose that. But it could cover us until we find a suitable contractor for that job. But I understand the reality of it, and I just need to know when the cutoff date is to hand off the responsibilities. Is it at the town election day if no one comes in, or what's the beginning date? That's the first thing. And then the second thing a little bit, Ron, is is Kim going all the way back to the first book and getting stuff online? Because I end up in the 1820s a lot of time doing deed research.
Yeah, so David, can you mute your mic? We're getting some feedback from your something or other. Thank you. Yeah, Matt, the first, there's 3 phases to the land records. One is the initial one, which was done a few years ago, which got all the land records back to 2005. And now the second phase gets us back 40 years, which would be 1980. The last phase is getting back to book 1. It's a matter of money coming in from recording fees and time and money, to keep picking off those years. But there is a plan to gradually go backward.
Okay, I was just curious about that when you were talking about moving the $5,000 around, how that would affect it. Anyway, moving it back to the assessor.
Well, currently, there's in our warning that we look at later, we put a warning, should the town move towards doing this. Who knows what the town's going to say. I think you're right. Depending on what happens with, with Julie, that could be a good in between. I know what they hope is they sell and they're gone, but who knows? And I think sort of, as Ron was saying, 2 years ago, we were in the same position. It looked as though they had it sold too. I don't know. Everybody else, what do you think we should do?
I think we ought to go right back to square one. We shouldn't even be talking about this right now, because we got an issue in the listers department that I can't say right now unless we go into executive session, and all you guys here on the board all know what I'm talking about. It is, I'll leave it right there. If we need to talk about this, we're going to go into executive session, but we don't need to do anything with the listers department right now.
Yeah, I think one of the issues, Dave, is that the board of listers, which is 3 people, goes to one person. They can no longer act as the board of listers, and the select board is forced to hire a professionally trained town assessor. That's the only option under state law.
Yeah, and I agree with you, but there's a word in there wrong you use, is if. You can't run a business on an if. If Julie goes, we may have to jump through hoops and get something, but
no, I'm talking about the election at town meeting day, because right now
it's
we're
the
down
other
to
2 listers we don't have. We have
Julie-
2 vacancies
Julie's
and no one wants them.
Julie's a town employee, not a lister. Julie's a town employee now. She quit the lister. So Matt Reed is the only lister. Technically, with Gary resigning, we're not going to have a board of listers on town meeting day. And you're going to be forced to hire a professionally trained town assessor by state law. You're not going to have a choice. The issue you're talking about is the 3 to 5 hours a week.
No, it's 8 hours. I don't know where the 3 to 5 hours come up. It never was discussed 3 to 5 hours. It was 8 hours.
Okay, well, let's say it's 8 hours. Right now, Julie is doing all of the work that she does. I don't think she's professionally trained, but she's skilled. So I don't know what the statutory, hiccup would be there, but she gets her work done in 4 to 5 hours a week. And the elected lister, which is pretty much Matt Reed right now, I don't think Matt's spending any hours per week, right, Matt? It's just from time to time.
Right. I don't charge for when I review all the documents. I haven't charged for anything like that, which is minimal when Gary and I stop by and sign the timesheets. Obviously the reason we're not in there working, which we would have to get paid, is right now with COVID, I can't train with a second person in the office or whatever. And it's cheapest. The cheapest thing for the town at the current time is to hire Julie as she's doing it. She's the most efficient. I can probably do what she does. Even with a couple of weeks of training, it would take me probably 12 hours a week to do what she does in 4 to 5. But I do review everything, like the grand list the other day and all that stuff. But I haven't been charging the town for any of that. I only really charge the town if I go out and I'm taking pictures over the summer, because I have access to properties that the normal appraisers can't get to. I have gate combinations and stuff. So I've done that. But other than that, not being able to have 2 of us in the office is a challenge.
So Dave, it's 2 separate issues. Are we not having the listers is the first issue, and is the issue that forces us to hire somebody. Okay, because you have to have 3 listers. We've got 1. We have no other people interested in being listers. So with the state, we're out of compliance. And when you don't have your listers, you have to hire somebody to do it. Matt's saying that the best thing for us right now is if we can hire Julie to do the work, but that sort of postpones the issue of, can we find 3 people that want to be listers, or do we hire somebody? And in that process, and as Matt says, the issue you can't have not being able to get into the office and train is part of our problem with our 5 to 8 hours that we're talking about over here as well. It's the training time. It's quite clear that if we go to Julie sells, they sell their property and they leave, we hire an outside appraiser, that's really going to force the issue of us having the staff that does the 5 to 8 hours that supports that outside appraiser. So that issue will be forced that way. And I expect someplace out there is that's the box we're going to be in. So I think my question is, do we want to put that issue on the town ballot? Do we want to see if we can come up with some listers? What do you think we should do, Ron?
I think Julie Roletter posted, I think it was Front Porch Forum or come out yesterday or recently, she said she was going to post a plea to have interest in the lister's position. Matt can speak to this a little bit, but having somebody with no experience try to catch up with state regulation and do the amount of work and training needed just to meet the statutory requirements is quite a commitment. So we've been lucky enough to have one person for many years, which is Julie, filling a pretty big void in the sense that she was doing 90% of it by herself, even under the old membership of the Board of Listers. So because there's not a wealth of 3 trained listers that can all help share the burden, which used to be the old way. 20 years ago, 3 people, 2 people, they would be able to meet the statutory requirements, and that's not as easy anymore. So over the years, we've had less and less people want to fill the elected position, which is forcing more and more towns on a statewide basis, really, to move to town assessor. So either you'll be forced to do it because, worst case scenario, Julie and nobody runs. So if Matt's the sole survivor and you have to go on a search for an assessor sort of after the fact, what you can do, I mean, you cannot make any decisions to add the article, know this is coming, and to see what happens at town meeting day. Or you can be more proactive and say, we've had a bunch of experience with all of these sort of the transition to a town assessor, and we just see the writing on the wall, and we need to ask voters for approval to make this change officially. So I think those are the 2 choices: either sit tight, know there's a lot of balls up in the air, see what actually happens at town meeting day, and then or make it proactive, have a discussion with the community, and call the question.
I think that's the way I would vote for. But did somebody just say that Wolcott was thinking about going the same way?
Sorry, Westford.
Westford. When it comes to that, or if it comes to that, we can't find no listers. Maybe we can work together with another town, and if everybody else having that same issue, is have one person do 3-4 towns.
Johnson has an assessor because they had the same problem. I don't know how many years ago, but I can't think of her name that's down there, but they had to do the same thing. So Johnson's already done it. And one thing I'll say is that software, to get in there, to understand that and know that every time they do a change, literally you have to learn it again. I mean, it's almost takes a full-time job just to know the software every day. I can't believe how complicated that is to expect, 3 volunteers or even somewhat paid employees to learn. That is crazy to keep up on it, and all the changes and all the trainings that go with it. If you don't use it every day, it flips fast.
So Dave, you think we should leave it on the agenda and for town meeting and see what happens?
No, I think we should look for 3 listers, advertise for them.
Well, Julie put something I had Front Porch Forum yesterday.
Yeah,
I think Kim is putting a notice out as well, because right now, because there's no decision, Dave, the lister positions will be advertised as normal because there's 2 openings. And then the question of assessors forcing it a little bit. It's forcing the issue based on the history, that it's the writing's on the wall, let's have a community discussion. So yeah, you can wait till something happens and make an action, be forced to do it, or have a discussion at these informational meetings coming up with the voters.
Roger, what do you want us to do?
Yeah.
There you go.
Year ago, we voted to put 8 hours into the town lister. So what happens to those 8 hours are supposed to go into the town lister?
That is a separate issue. She has to be trained to do that work. The issue being, as Matt has said, with COVID, you can't get people in to train together. So that her hours are a separate issue. The issue right now is literally having the listers.
Yeah, but I mean, the COVID's not going to last forever.
I sure hope you're right.
So, and we've got this way so far for so many years. I can't keep jumping through the gun and spending a lot of money for something we may not have to do.
What would the training look like if you had to do it, Matt?
So I would say, because we started the training, you have to do some online courses there, and you have to attend at least I think it's 1 or 2 full day classes a year. And I had kind of got up to speed on it, and we had started to train Kristen when COVID happened. But I would say that train somebody that's a part-timer that doesn't use that software, it would probably take, working with a trained lister or someone trained like Julie, it would probably take 4 hours a week for 6 months. And you'd have to be the worst 6 months through the cycle of the grand list and all that to see every single step of that. Or let's say worst case scenario, you didn't have somebody, you go to the classes, which would be, I think it would probably take about 5 full days going to like St. Johnsbury or whenever they hold the classes around the state to get caught up to that if you don't have someone to train with. And the worst part is when they change that software like they did this year, if you don't do it every day, you got to go right. You're almost starting again. And the other thing is, of course, there's a lot of institutional knowledge. Julie, if we say something about McMahon's, they got the discount there for their taxes for so many years. She knew that right off the top of her head, went and found the file, updated the thing, done in seconds. But if somebody goes in there that's a volunteer, that's a tough institutional knowledge to keep up with. Okay. Roland, that the worst part is it's the software, not knowing, it's easy to know what's going on in the town and assess places, but that software is a bear, and the state just keeps pushing out different software, and it is a bear to keep up with.
Okay, I just wanted to see the extent of it. I know that the state is continuing with some of their training. They just do it either online or you're just socially distancing when you're at the training site with proper PPE.
And again, this is the training we're talking about for listers, not for Kristen.
So we should have 8 hours. So we should have 8 hours of time, that money to go towards hiring one then.
Yes, you'd have to, right, Roger's right. You'd have to look at the current, come to an agreement on what the hours are, and then do a value on that, and either have Kristen fill in those hours with new job duties, take those job duties away and give them to a contracted assessor, or come up with a third plan. So there is money in the town office budget for listing services, not enough to pay for the whole contracted account with a new town assessor, but something to help there. There is $11,000 in the current budget for a NEMRIC contract to help with listing, and that's $5,000, and then there's $6,000 for lister salaries, which are really for Julie and any of the town listers, elected listers. So there's 11 in the budget. There's some in the town office salary side, and the combination of all that might leave probably less than 5,000 difference, maybe, or maybe cover the whole thing if you had to go contract out. So that's why I didn't use 10,000 in my earlier explanation. I think 5,000 more in the budget would pay for a totally contracted person. Dave's proposal is to not to add anything to the budget, see what happens at town meeting day, and then you'll have decisions to make based on what happens, which is fine. You won't have the $5,000 in the budget.
As I think Dave started, we got so many things that we don't know that I think going through town meeting, which after town meeting we will know, we should have a much clearer picture. Who knows? In between, Julie they may sell their house and be gone. There are just so many variables right now that, do we leave that as an item for people to vote on?
Well, if you're going that way, you would take out the draft article.
Right.
You could mention it in the informational meetings that this thing's out there, so people aren't surprised next year if it comes up. Yeah, that's what you would do if you took it out. Okay. The budget doesn't have to change because we never put any more money in it.
Does that work for everybody?
I like that idea. Put it to the voter.
No, this is actually, we pull the article and we can talk to them at the informational meetings because we don't know what's going to happen. And then once we see what happens, we can say, okay, here's what's going on.
Yeah, that.
Okay. Got it, Ron? That work for you, Roger?
Yep.
Yes,
Rolly?
we're all good. Yep.
Okay. You. Thanks, Matt. Okay, zoning fees.
Okay, so I reviewed the current zoning fees against 4 or 5 other neighboring towns that have zoning regulations and come into more of a market adjustment. They're not higher than everybody else. You can see that there's some towns higher. There's I think one town lower than what we charge per square foot. I'm looking at it as a true up, refreshment of the fees, and then let it sit for another 6 or 10 years or whatever before visiting them again.
I'm searching through paper looking for it because I remember when I looked at it, there wasn't any gigantic change in anything. It's just bringing them all up a little bit.
You're talking about permit fees, Ron?
Yes, yes.
What would it cost a person right now to go and get a permit to build a house?
Depends on their size of the building, but they're in the 150 range, maybe something like that. So
For 1,500 square foot, yeah, it would be 150.
Yeah, then you also have, we're only talking building, right? We're not talking all permits together.
We're talking two different types of permits. One is the development or zoning fees. The other one is the 1111 permit for highway access.
And that is how much?
Right now it is 90.
Okay, and what are you proposing?
Same fee, but putting, hold on a second, I'm trying to pull up I have a list of all these things, of course. So the 1111 fee currently is 90, and it would go up by 75. So it'd be 165. The $75 of that, which is your increase, goes to the Stormwater Reserve Fund to help with our MRGP compliance. And that's your roadside ditching and dealing with the stormwater that comes from the driveways. So we have new requirements to deal with that stormwater in a little more expensive way. So as people develop they develop our drainage system with driveways or roads, we have a fee that would go into Stormwater Reserve and be used for future projects.
Okay, and how much on the 150 regular for 1,500 square foot that would go to what?
Yeah, so that's a flat fee for every house. So if somebody comes in and says, I want to put a house on some road, they'll pay the 165 for the highway access permit. 75 of that goes to the reserve fund for future town projects.
Okay.
The first 75 goes to the administration of that permit. $15 goes to the recording fee because they go into land records. So it's really 150 plus 15.
Then what's the other 150 for the house?
Yeah, so on we can just let's use 1,000 square foot house. You're going to have $65 for the house permit. It's a small house. And under the proposed, be 115.
But you're at 150 now.
No, I'm talking about the zoning permit. There's two fees we're talking about. The highway access permit, which is the driveway.
Right.
Goes from 90, which is 75 plus 15, because we're gonna be at the 50. And then the new fee for the driveway is 165.
But you said a 1,500 square foot house would be $150.
No, I think Brian said, I'm going to 1,000 square foot house to compare current plus proposed.
Okay.
So the
1,000
current,
is,
yeah, the current house for 1,000 square feet is 65.
okay.
The new fee would be 115. And all the increase for the driveway goes to the stormwater reserve.
Okay.
That's not an increase for administration. That's an increase for stormwater reserve for future projects. And the formula is 5 cents to 10 cents a square foot. So you can pick any size house you want and get the fee. The other big change was commercial, which is 10 cents to 20 cents.
And this would put us like our neighbors, correct?
Yeah, they're all coming in line with the neighbors. You can look at the list, and Stowe has some variable. They have rates all over the place. 20 cents is their highest commercial, which we would match. Underhill is a 50-cent commercial fee, which is wicked high. I don't know how they get away with that. That's pretty high. Hardwick has a flat fee for a greater than $7,500 of value is $65. They have a different system. They assess on value of construction.
But commercial is going to stay the same. If somebody built 1,000 square foot commercial building, it costs them $200 for the permit.
For 1,000 square foot building.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and that's also the minimum fee. So if they built a small, something less than 1,000 square feet, it would still be 200. 200 is the minimum.
Right, but if it was 1,350 square foot, it'd be
a little bit more than
$10 or something like that.
Yeah, a little bit more than 200. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
One of the things that I was finding is that the subdivision process, which there's a section on subdivision fees, tends to be about the same, whether it's residential or commercial. The standards aren't that much different, but for some reason we had a difference. You know, a single residential subdivision lot was 50, but if you did commercial subdivision, it was 100. But I'm finding I spend about the same amount of time and effort no matter what type of use, because they all have to deal with the same kind of regulations, stormwater, driveway, whatever. So under the proposed, it's $100 for residential and $150 for commercial. So they're slightly increased, but under the current fee, commercial pays double residential. Under the proposed fee, it's 50% more.
And on the regular one, 100% of that goes to the town.
Yeah, all the residential fees and driveway fees, except for that except for the 75 for stormwater reserve,
Goes to the town.
Go to town.
Yeah.
Anybody got any questions? Okay, so is that Roger?
Yeah, I'm all set.
Okay. So I guess we need a motion to adjust the fees.
Yeah, you have two options on that. You have two options on that in your motion. I need an effective date. You can have those effective February 1st or July 1st. I like July 1st because the rate's going up. It gives people a chance to get through the building season this year and also to hear about the rates going up. So they might want to get their applications in before July 1st. If they're concerned about that kind of a dollar amount.
Yeah.
So moved.
Second.
Right, with the July 1st.
So
July
moved.
1st.
Yeah.
Okay. Everybody, we got the increase in the fees going in July 1st. Everybody in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstaining? Okay. Phew. Okay, Ron, little odds and ends of the town budget.
Yeah, I sent the budget out that was dated for January 18th, posted it on the town website. It only had those changes that we discussed the last time, so there was no new major changes. I think the next thing to do is to finish up the town warning, finish up the town budget, the tax rate projection, and start to publish it and get people interested in those informational meetings. Like I said, it'll stay on the town website homepage so anybody can see the budget. But I think that either the select board can write something to Front Porch Forum, I could write something to Front Porch Forum. But just to start putting the information out there, because it is harder to, if you're not looking, it's harder to get people the information. So it's more responsibility of the select board to get the information to people. And I think, like Dave said, Front Porch Forum's good for that. Kim and Julie are doing their things on the election that we talked about earlier. But we'll also have to put more information out on the 2 meetings. So on the February 20, they're Mondays now, just for clarity. Monday, the 22nd of February, Monday, the 1st of March will be those informational meetings. And we have to advertise those in the beginning of February. So they are formal hearings of the select board, and we'll treat them as such. And hopefully people can log in and participate. But there's going to be a lot of people that just want to know. They want to know the information and then decide. They're not going to want to know a meeting date's coming up and not know a little bit about what it's about. So how do you want to approach that? This kind of your choice. Each member could write something up and put it on Front Porch Forum to get interest. Susan and I can do that. But anyway, it's going to happen over the next couple weeks.
I think just one letter from, in behalf of all the board would do just as well as everybody writing on their own thesis on it.
Well, and I think it's just as much we can, what this is really to do is to let people know where they can get the information. And that's, I think, and I think the page that people really look at, Ron, is that first page on the budget you give us. Here's the whole, here what it is, and people go right to their tax rate. So, here's what it's going to cost, going up.
Oh, the $100,000 number. How much per 100,000?
Yeah. Why don't we? Maybe I'll work with Ron and we'll do a couple of little short things that we can put into Front Porch Forum. To tell people to get people if they can go and look and put a real easy summary that people can click on and get to very easily, Ron.
Yeah, I think I've been using the homepage of the town website for those kind of things because it doesn't require anybody to get deep into the website. They can have it rated as the first page.
Yeah. And we might have a quick little chat with Roland LaJoy and because I think a lot of towns are going to be, and people are going to be scratching their heads about how they get information and how you do things this year, since everybody's going to this sort of a system for this year. How about you and I will draft up a little something, we can just email it around to everybody and they can see what it is, and we'll just start putting it on Front Porch Forum.
I'd also put in News and Citizen.
That's what I was just going to say.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yep.
Some people may not have utilize that forum.
No, you're right. Just draft up a little thing and put it in front you're right, the News and Citizen, and say, hey, if you need information, and here's where our informational meetings will be, and go to the town website and get the information you want.
Or call in.
Call Ron. Okay,
Yeah, I think I think that's a good approach. I think, like I said, people will be mostly informed because Kim is putting things out there. A lot of other towns are talking about it, but still, if we can get something that's short and sweet and just lets people know that the information is totally available, and do a little bit more this year, I think people appreciate that.
yeah, okay. With just those changes in the budget, we probably need to accept the budget, right?
Yeah, I think there's the mechanics of this is I think there's probably a special meeting, quick morning type meeting or another type 6 o'clock meeting. And what I mean by that is, like, I'd rather have the board have in front of them the warning that's final, the budget that's final, the tax rate that's final, and then I'll work with Susan to call a meeting so I can get all this final stuff. We don't have a final warning right now. I'm still working on that with the town attorney. The budget, I'm still, I'm done with the budget, but there's no harm in looking at it one more time. And then when I have everything together, it'll be, please vote to approve these, which would be the warning and the budget. And it won't be that long. Like the deadline for the printer, which is the deadline I usually use, is February 1st. And then shortly after that, Kim has her election deadlines that come up. So probably maybe it'll be next Monday, maybe it'll be, end of this week, but I'll give it to you at least a day ahead. There won't be many changes, but you'll have final documents to vote on.
Okay. And just everybody, if you haven't, it's in the packet, but it's the beginning of the town report and the report from the select board. And if you haven't read it, if you'll look particularly, Ron and I worked and put in some stuff about the village water system and the increase and that whole thing, and explaining it, giving people facts about what's going on and the background in it, so that folks will know what's going on. So if you all get a chance to look at that, and if you have any changes or figure out a better way to talk about it, feel free to chime in.
Yeah, I'll include that with the final set of documents, so you have the final select board report, just so I can bind it all together and you have it one place.
Okay. What else we got? Oh, the tech group contract. Right.
That's a simple vote to extend the current contract through June 30th. The changes that we talked about earlier are phased in July 1st, 2021 and July 1st, 2022. So this is really just continuing their services for 6 more months, because that contract expired December 31st.
Okay.
So move.
Second.
Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay. Okay, take a minute to look at the town orders. We were going to see if we could get those like on Friday, right, Ron? Ron, you're muted.
Yes, that was a delay. I'm trying to transition some of the work that I was doing on my computer to Allison.
Okay.
And part of it has to do with bundling of all those invoices on a digital Adobe. And for some reason, the credit card didn't go through the first time, and it bled into the end of the week where she got pushed into the weekend. So once she's set up with her software that she needs, she'll be able to do most of the bundling on her end and get it the way she wants. Right now, she sends me multiple files that I need to bundle, and it's a little cumbersome. So sorry about the sorry about the delay. You can actually take that report if you, well, I don't know, because I didn't talk to Allison if there's anything time sensitive, but if you want to take time, we could always take some time if somebody's not comfortable with the late delivery today. Or you can take a few minutes here and take the time now if you want.
I got through them fine. I just.
No, I understand. I'm sorry
Yeah,
about that.
okay, that's all right. Everybody else get through them? Need some time? What's your pleasure?
I'm good.
I'm good.
I'm good.
Okay. Okay. Then I guess we need a motion to approve them.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay, we're good. Review of the minutes. There it is. Here. There it is. Ah, come on. Have folks read them? What's this?
Yep.
Anybody find any corrections?
Fine to me.
They look good to me.
Okay, need a motion?
So
Thank
moved.
you.
Second.
Okay, all in favor of accepting the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstaining? Okay. Let me see it. For an update on the village water and sewer, I talked with Joel Page. And then we should get it sometime this week. We're getting a contract with the law firm. They've looked around the state and are hiring a couple of Vermont folks that have experience with rate setting and working with municipalities on this sort of thing to be able to take all the information that the village has done and come up with trying to understand and questions about how they reach the system and the rate structure that they did. So it's just, we'll just keep plodding along.
Look, you left out one thing, Susan.
Yeah.
It's pro bono.
Yeah, no, it's not. No, it's not pro bono. We're splitting the cost. We haven't gotten from the lawyer yet the charges, and I think they're getting, because they just with the bid for the rate consultants, the Vermont rate consultants. We'll see what it looks like. And we're now, when Ally makes payments, we do it, that it's in protest. And when you see the draft of what I've done to explain to people what it is and why we're doing it and the amounts of money that we're talking about. And I guess, anybody have anything else?
Yeah, I do so.
Yep.
talking about town report, who are we gonna dedicate it to this year?
Yeah, anybody got any ideas?
The only one I could remember, I did look through some obituaries for Hyde Park, trying to match any names I knew to somebody that had done town service. Melvin Harvey has the longest membership on DRB. And I didn't recognize any other names like that would have been serving in the last 10 years or so. So I don't, if somebody was there, I didn't recognize their name, but anyway.
No, I think that would be very appropriate.
Now, if you want me to, I will work with Ken to get a picture and a small write-up if you want.
That'd be great. That would be terrific.
And when do you want that invite on?
Dave, I'll email you what I found on the my web search.
Okay.
And you can look at that and talk to Ken.
Okay.
I think we're asking for all reports from everybody in the world that wants to be published to be here by next by Friday, I think. By Friday or Monday at the latest.
Okay.
So for you, it could be Monday at the latest next week.
What are you saying?
But I'll send that. I'll immediately, like in a second or two, I'll send you what I got. It's pretty good to what they wrote up in one of the obituaries. So
yeah, but I'll get a picture from Ken or.
Yeah, I'll send you what I have and then ask Ken to for some funny remembrance or something would be good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, I'll do it.
Okay. Anybody got anything else? Guess we're in pretty good shape.
Anybody online, Sue? I don't know if anybody's still here that had comments.
Right, I
I
forget
see
them.
Mary and Matt Reed are still here.
Don't hear anything. Okay. I guess.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay.
So
Got a second.
move. So move.
Terrific. All in favor signify by saying aye.
All right.
We're set.
All right.
Everybody stay healthy. You particularly,
Yeah.
Brian. Be careful over there. Jeez.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Stay healthy.
Thanks.
Good night, everybody.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Night.
Night.
Night.